Wrapping up, it's got some notable performances. Take a look here. Dante Jackson, one of three guys to run a 4.32 40-yard dash. How about Harrison Phillips? He led the way with 42 reps on the bench press. And then we have wide receiver DJ Moore from the University of Maryland. He had the highest broad jump. So let's head back out to Indianapolis, where we find our Louis Riddick and Todd McShay. Big weekend, guys, for the quarterbacks, and potentially one of them may not even go first overall. But let's get to it. What's the buzz on Wyoming's quarterback, Josh Allen?
Well, right now, I'll tell you, look, when you come into the combine, you aren't really set up to succeed as a quarterback as far as your accuracy is concerned, because the routes aren't run typically the way they are coached at NFL training camps, and you don't really have any rapport with these wide receivers. So Josh Allen, a guy who would struggle with accuracy during his college career, you thought he would struggle here. Not the case. He powered the ball right into the spots that he wanted to, short, intermediate, and deep. That's why I say of all the quarterbacks, he helped himself, because if he can do that and he can play under control like that, hopefully someone can get him to do it at 11 on 11.
And the thing that has been impressive, too, just talking to Mort and talking to some guys in the league, that he's interviewed well and is showing good football intelligence. And the thing that stood out from the workout, too, you don't want to be late on your throws, but sometimes as a quarterback just going through progression reads, sometimes you are going to be late if you get down to your third or fourth read. And if Allen's late, it's okay. Whereas a lot of other quarterbacks, it's just too late at that process. Yeah. You've got to tuck the ball and run. He's able, the post corner routes that we saw where the receiver is out of the break already and there's about 20 yards between the receiver and the sideline, to be able to get that ball there in time, drop it in with that velocity, really impressive. We know he's had a big arm, for as long as we've scouted him, but to watch him here in these drills, apples to apples against all the other quarterbacks, it's so obvious that he has a gift that very few have.
Let's talk about the other quarterbacks, the other Josh guys. How about Josh Rosen? How do he look to you?
Yeah, he's one of those guys, quite honestly, Diana, I struggle with a little bit, because now from a pure technical standpoint, as far as comfort in your drops, smoothness, fluidity in drops, and getting the ball out on time, that's his forte. That's supposed to be his forte. He didn't look that impressive in that aspect of it in this combine as far as throwing the football. As a matter of fact, his first throw, he kind of dirtballed it about 2 or 3 yards in front of the wide receiver on a slant route. Now, his deep ball was beautiful here. He threw 3 9 routes in a row that were picture perfect. But it wasn't one of those, wow, look at that as far as timing, accuracy, arm velocity. But, I don't know if necessarily he was ever going to really shine in that way here at this combine anyway. He's more an 11 on 11 guy, which is where his cerebral capability and his mechanics and technique kind of shine through the best.
Yeah, I would argue, as great a pure passer as he is, he has the least velocity on his ball of the top 4 quarterbacks when you compare him to Mayfield and Allen and Sam Darnold. But I also would argue that he's the most consistent in terms of going through his progressions, getting the ball out on time, ball placement on throws that require anticipation, and just the touch that he throws the ball with. You've got to figure out what you're getting, and the interviews, this is the beginning of the process. Now when teams are going in for the pro day and the individual workouts, and then most importantly bringing him into their building and spending a whole day with him, trying to figure out who he is and can he be a great teammate, can he be coached? And those are the sort of things I think that are going to decide whether Rosen is right there at maybe pick 1 or 2, or are we talking about him getting outside the top 10 to a team like Arizona or to maybe Miami at sitting at number 11.
Guys, one of the other pieces of news to come out of the combine was that the Dolphins set up a dinner meeting with Baker Mayfield the night before his pro day. But there at the combine, how has he looked for you?
Look, Baker's arm is much stronger than people think it is. You saw that down at the Senior Bowl as well, and it really showed up here. He can put some velocity on the football. He can put it where he wants to. There's some throws where he'd like to have it placed a little bit better, but he can throw it where he wants to. He had a very, very solid workout. The one thing you notice about him, as with most quarterbacks who operate primarily from the pistol or the gun in college, is that when he's taking his drops here and simulating working from under center, it looks very mechanical, robotic, almost like in his head he's counting 1, 2, 3. Now throw it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Throw it. So it looks like he's actually going through the motions in a way that doesn't look very natural, but that will come for him. The thing about Baker Mayfield, though, is this: he's an 11 on 11 guy. That's where he really shines. From a negative standpoint, the only thing I would say is this: it's getting a little bit tiring to hear people say, when Baker is away from the field, there's always that edge to him to a point sometimes starts to wear on people. We get where he comes from. We get how much of a chip on his shoulder has propelled him to where he is now. But I think it's probably time for him to be a little bit aware, too, that people are starting to talk about that just a little bit about, okay, you don't have to always have that edge. We get it, and we love it, and we want you. He's my number one quarterback. But just don't make it be a 24/7 type of thing.
Yeah, I think the interview process is going to be important for him as well. I think Baker he's just a different cat. You've got to get to know him, and the people who are around him in Oklahoma absolutely swear by him. You can't find a person in Norman that will say a negative thing about Baker Mayfield because they've seen his approach, they've seen his work ethic, and they've seen the energy that he brings to a football team. And I agree with Lewis. I think it's very obvious when watching him here with other quarterbacks and at the Senior Bowl, he has the arm velocity. I'm not sure where that started, but it seems like it's been talked about. He just has an average arm or below average arm. He has a good arm. He has a stronger arm, in my opinion, than Josh Rosen, and he's just as accurate as any of these other quarterbacks. So mechanically, working on the drops, I thought he showed some urgency with it, but you're right, a little bit mechanical in it. But he's such a good athlete. He'll pick up the drops when it's all said and done.
Yeah, but perhaps a little less chip on that shoulder there, right? But, guys, you got a quarterback not projected to land in the first round, and that being Lamar Jackson. What's going on there? What did you guys see from him this weekend?
Look, Lamar is a quarterback, okay? The whole argument about him playing wide receiver is nonsense. He's a guy who's going to need further development. There's no question about that. He'll be the first one to tell you that. Okay, so here, when he was throwing, his accuracy was affected. It was very up and down. But you could tell he was trying so hard to prove to people I can throw the ball where it needs to be thrown that he was almost aiming it instead of throwing it. He was counting his steps, too, and trying to be perfect instead of just playing naturally. Because, look, it's quite honest that it's obvious, rather, that he hears the criticism, too. He hears what people are saying. Anybody who tells you that they don't hear it, they're lying to you. He just needs to get what's going to be critical with Lamar Jackson, that he goes to a place that knows how to coach quarterbacks and knows how to coach technique. And we know this. Every coaching staff in the NFL doesn't. Coaches ruin players as much as players ruin themselves. That'll be the case with Lamar Jackson. Hopefully he goes to a place that knows how to tutor quarterbacks.
Well, and to that, he needs two things. He needs a quarterback coach that can teach him the mechanics. He's got that narrow base. If you watch, it doesn't take a super scout to figure out his base doesn't look the same as most other quarterbacks. So working on that to become more consistent with his base and delivery and follow through. And then he also needs an offensive coordinator or head coach, if he's in charge of the offense, that understands Lamar and what Lamar can do and what Lamar can't currently do, and maybe down the road he will be able to do more consistently. But he needs someone who's going to utilize his mobility but not exploit him in terms of running the ball and designed runs, because it bulked up 216 pounds. He just has a thin frame. I don't care what his numbers are. He has a thin frame, and he won't hold up like Cam Newton, who's over 250 pounds. So they're going to have to figure out how to utilize him, get him comfortable, and I think Deshaun Watson is a very good example of how you could utilize Lamar Jackson and maybe tweak it a little bit from there. Yeah,
guys, this is all such a really good insight. We started the show talking to you about Shaq Griffin, and really, if it wasn't for Shaq Griffin, Saquon Barkley would be all the rage today. Can you guys tell me about his weekend?
It's pretty simple, Diana. It was fantastic. It was spectacular. He did it all. Look, he's an easy scout because his tape is easy to watch. You see that he is a three-down player. You see he can run, catch, and block. Here, you can't see if he can block, but you can tell he can run and you can tell he can catch, and he's a phenomenal kid. He's deserving of everything people are saying about him. He should have a wonderful career. He's going to go awful high. He'll go in the top 2.
Yeah, he came in as the number 1 player on most teams' boards, and he just confirmed it with what he did here. 16 pounds heavier than Adrian Peterson was at his combine, ran the same 40-yard dash time, had better jumps. Vertical jump of 41 is ridiculous. And as Lewis said, I think a lot of people in the league got to see just what he is in terms of a human being. Everyone around him wants to be with him, wants to talk to him, and whoever drafts him, whether it's the Giants sitting there at 2, the Colts at 3, I think you're gonna wind up seeing him come in and early on become a leader of that team and almost kind of change the whole vibe for the franchise because he's that kind of individual and human being.
You guys are rock stars. Lewis, I'll see you at Saquon Barkley's Pro Day at Penn State. I think I owe you a dinner, so I look forward to that. Guys, thanks so much for all your hard work the last few days. Good work.
You bet.
You got it.
All right, it's Overreaction Monday.